Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. I ask Allah to grant us the sincere intentions. Shaykh Abdullah rahimahullah continued mentioning in the Sirat, refuting the Mu'tazilah, speaking about the will of Allah, His knowledge and His power, and the attribute of Al-Qadr. He said what means dividing the matters into 4 categories. All of the matters are one of 4. The first matter is that thing which Allah eternally willed and ordered for it to be done. And this is the belief of the believers, meaning Allah willed that it would be, that it would exist, and so it was. And Allah ordered for it to be done, ordered for people to believe. So this was willed by Allah, and Allah ordered that it be done. The second matter is the thing that Allah eternally willed. Also, Allah willed that it would occur, and so it did. But Allah did not order for it to be done. And this, an example of it is the sinning of the sinners, the disobedience of the people who disobey Allah. For indeed, Allah willed that they would disobey Him. Allah willed that. Allah willed that people would go against His orders. Allah willed that these people would exist. But the difference between the first and the second is that Allah did not order the people to disobey Him. Rather, He ordered them to obey Him. However, kufr is not accepted by Allah. So yes, did Allah create al-Iman? Yes. Did Allah, belief. Did Allah create kufr? Yes. Does Allah accept al-Iman? Yes. Allah gave it a high status. Does Allah accept kufr? The answer is no. So, disbelief is not accepted by Allah, even though Allah created it in accordance with His will. He does not accept this for His slaves, just as Allah told us in the Quran, in Surah Az-Zumar, Ayah 7, وَلَا يَرْضَى لِعِبَادِهِ الْكُفُرِ. Allah does not accept kufr, disbelief, for His slaves. Yes, He created Iman and He created it. He created kufr, but He does not accept for His slaves to do it, to practice kufr. The third category is a matter which Allah did not will for, but He ordered for it to be done. So something that Allah did not will, meaning it won't happen, but still Allah ordered for it to be done. What is this matter? An example of it is belief in reference to the non-Muslims, whom Allah knew that they would die as kuffar. So belief in reference to those whom Allah knows They will die as non-Muslims. Here it is said, Allah ordered all the accountable people to believe. Allah ordered the kuffar to believe, to be Muslims. But Allah did not will it. So this is a third matter. The first, Allah willed, and likewise Allah ordered. A second matter, the second matter is a matter that Allah willed but did not order. And this third matter is a matter that Allah Ta'ala did not will. Allah did not will for the kuffar who will enter hell, who He knows to enter hell. Allah did not will for them to believe, meaning they won't believe. They will be in hell. Despite that, Allah ordered that everybody, even including them, believe. And they will disobey the order of Allah, hence why they will enter hell. Then a fourth matter. A fourth matter that Allah did not eternally will, and He did not order for it to be done. Rather, He prohibited for it to be done, such as, or for it to occur, such as kufr or disbelief in reference to the prophets and the angels. So Allah did not will that the prophets would commit kufr, because this is impossible. It doesn't happen. It won't happen. It never happened to a prophet that a prophet committed kufr. Likewise, the angels, it never happened, and it will not happen that the angels will commit kufr, because Allah freed them from this, exalted the prophets and the angels from committing kufr. In other words, Allah has not eternally willed that the prophets will commit or have committed kufr, or the angels. Allah has not willed that they will commit kufr. So the fourth matter is a matter that Allah has not willed, and Allah did not order for it to be done. Rather, it is impossible. And an example of that is kufr in reference to prophets and angels. And similarly, many other things among the sinful matters. Likewise, the disliked and permissible matters, which Allah did not order that they be done. And He eternally knew that some people will not do them. And so He did not eternally will for them to do those matters. So these are the matters that are related to when we speak about the will of Allah. Whatever Allah wills for it to come into existence, it comes into existence. Nothing can stop that. Nothing can prevent that. Some of these things that Allah eternally willed to exist, hence they will exist. Some of them He ordered us to love them. And some of them He ordered us to hate them. Despite the fact that Allah created both of them, the good and the bad. But the good Allah ordered us to love, and the bad Allah ordered us to hate. And like this, there are four matters that are related to when we speak about the will of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Allah revealed in the Quran, and the believer should stop here. The believer should stop at what Allah revealed in the Quran. In Surah Al-Anbiya, Surah 21, Ayah 23. لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. This means Allah is not questioned about what he does. No one has authority over Allah Ta'ala. Allah does not answer to anyone. Allah is not held to account by anyone. لا يسأل عما يفعل. Allah is not questioned about what he does. وهم, and rather it is the creations that يسألون. They will be held to account. They will be asked. We will be asked. Hence, it is not to be said, how could Allah torture in the hereafter the sinners for their sins which He willed for them to fall into? We don't ask this question. This is because if this is said in the meaning, firstly, of objecting to Allah, like as though to say, Allah is wrong for punishing the sinners when it is in fact Him, He that created the sins of the sinners, this is kufr. To object to Allah is kufr. However, if one was to ask about this matter, to know about the wisdom behind it, then it is not kufr and it is not haram either. A person might ask, they want their knowledge to grow. So they ask, how do we explain this matter? And here they would be told, if a person asked, how could Allah torture in the hereafter the sinners for their sins which He willed for them to fall into? Then here we would say that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا ذُكِرَ الْقَدَرْ فَأَمْسِكُوا. If these matters are mentioned, then refrain. And لَا يُسْأَلُ عَمَّا يَفْعَلْ. Allah is not asked or held to account for what He does and creates. وَهُمْ يُسْأَلُونَ. And they will be asked, or you, or questioner, will be asked. So never mind this. Don't think about this. Next, the Shaykh, continuing to refute the false belief of some that humans create so that they can be held to account in the hereafter, he continued to mention some proofs in this regard. He will speak about Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala being one in His self, so there is no self like the self of Allah. Likewise, Allah being one in His attributes, no one has attributes like the attributes of Allah. And likewise, so we've mentioned that, the self of Allah, likewise as-sifat, the attributes of Allah, and now the af'al of Allah. The scholars said, fi'lullah huwa al-khalq. The fi'al of Allah, this word, the fi'al of Allah, it means the creating of Allah. At-takhliq, bringing from non-existence into existence. And Allah is one in His creating, meaning no one creates other than Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So Allah has Tawheed in His self, oneness, if you will, in His self. Tawheed in His attributes, and Tawheed in His af'al. his creating. So the tawheed of Allah in his creating. Let us discuss that briefly. This means that Allah Ta'ala creates, in the meaning that he brings into existence things from non-existence. And there is no creator in this meaning other than Allah. It was narrated from Al-Imam Al-Junayd Al-Baghdadi, the Imam of the true Sufiyyah. He at his time, everybody from Ahlul Sunnah recognized him as a pious person, upon the truth, performing the obligations and staying away from the haram, and having a great amount of knowledge and being a great worshipper, exerting himself in doing that and advising people. It was narrated from him that when he was asked about the meaning of at-tawheed, of oneness, when speaking about Allah, he said, it is the certainty, the yaqeen. Then he was asked for further explanation. And he said, indeed, there is no one who makes things exist, whether entities or deeds. There is no creator for them other than Allah Ta'ala. So this goes back to the creating of Allah, fi'lullah. Fi'lullah meaning the doing of Allah, i.e. the creating of Allah. Allah Ta'ala revealed in As-Saffat, Surah 37, Ayah 96, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah created you and what you do. This is a clear proof against those that say we create our own deeds. For indeed Allah mentioned, وَاللَّهُ خَلَقَكُمْ, Allah created you. وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ, and what you do. Allah created that too. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ صَانِعُ كُلِّ صَانِعٍ وَصَنْعَتِهِ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ صَانِعُ كُلِّ صَانِعٍ وَصَنْعَتِهِ. Certainly Allah is the maker of every maker and his making. Allah is the creator of everyone who makes things, and Allah is the creator of the things that maker makes. Among the creation, Allah is the creator, therefore, of absolutely everything. This was narrated by Al-Hakim, Al-Bayhaqi, and Ibn Hibban from the hadith of Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman, the companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah creates every maker and the making of every maker. Thus the slaves do not create anything of their deeds, and instead they acquire them. Mas'alatul kasab, al-kasab, or al-iktisab, acquisition. So this is how Ahlul Sunnah explained this matter, that yes, the slaves do not create, because that would mean they are creators with Allah. The slaves do not create their deeds. So what is it called when they do these deeds that Allah created for them? When one of us does a deed with this hand that Allah created for us, And the deed we do, the deed that Allah created for us. How do we word that? How do we explain that? It's called al-kasb or al-iktisab, acquisition. We direct our intentions towards doing a deed. And when we direct our intentions towards doing the deed, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, had He eternally willed that that deed would be done at that time, it would be created for us. Allah would create it for us. This is called the acquisition of the deed, to acquire the deed. For indeed Allah Ta'ala revealed in Ayah 16 of Surah Al-Ra'd, Surah 13, Allahu khaliqu kulli shay. Allah is the creator of everything. Allah Ta'ala is praised by this because it is something specific to Him. Creating, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is praised by that, to say that Allah is the creator. That is because it is specific to Allah. It is an attribute that is exclusive to Allah. No one else is attributed with creating, with this meaning. So, Allah is praised by this, to say, Ya Khaliq, Anta alladhi Anta Khaliq. O you who are the creator, because this is something that's specific to Him. And that necessitates absolute inclusivity of all entities, and that necessitates the creating, that necessitates absolute inclusivity. It includes, because Allah is the creator of everything and He's the only creator, it means He is the one that must have created absolutely everything, all entities, all deeds, movements, stillness, everything. So Him being the creator, which is an attribute that is exclusive to Allah, it necessitates absolute inclusivity of Allah having created everything. Everything is included. Everything that exists other than Allah, Allah created it. Allah Ta'ala revealed in Surah Al-An'am, Surah 6, Ayah 162 and 163. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي. Say, O Muhammad, alayhi salatu wassalam, that my prayer, وَنُسُكِي, those things that I do in al-Hajj, وَمَحْيَاي, my life, وَمَمَاتِي, all of these, and my death, لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. All of these, they are owned by Allah. They are owned by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Allah is the one who these things belong to. He is the Lord of the universe. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. In this ayah, Allah ordered the Prophet to mention 4 things, alayhi salatu wassalam. To say that the prayer, the actions of al-Hajj, life and death of the creation, all of these, they are owned by Allah. Why are they owned by Allah? Because Allah created them. As-salat and an-nusuk, these are voluntary deeds. As-salah, prayer, is a voluntary deed that you do with your intention. Likewise, the actions of al-Hajj, you do these with your own intention. They are voluntary deeds. And Allah mentioned that these, they are owned by Allah, meaning Allah is their creator. Allah creates the voluntary deeds. Then Allah revealed, وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي, with regards to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, that also life and death also. They are life and death of the humans and the jinn are also owned by Allah. And these two matters are not voluntary deeds. They are not voluntary. Just like one of us cannot control his heartbeat or the blood running through the veins. We cannot control that. If one of us intends now for the blood in the arm to suddenly reverse and go the other way, it's pumping one way to intend for it to reverse and go the other way. No, this is not under our control. So these deeds, these are things that are occurring to us, but we have no control over them. So these are involuntary deeds. So Allah mentioned two voluntary deeds and two involuntary deeds and mentioned Lillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allah is the owner of these deeds. He created them. They belong to Allah, meaning Allah owns them. And who is Allah? Rabbil Alameen, the owner of all creation. So this is a proof that Allah is the creator of the voluntary deeds and not people, as the Mu'tazila said. La sharika lahu, Allah mentioned in the next ayah. Allah has no partner with him in that, in being the creator and owning absolutely everything. قال الله تعالى, Allah revealed or ordered the Prophet to say, وَبِذَلِكَ أُمِرْتُ وَأَنَا أَوَّلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, that this is what I have been commanded with, to teach this, and I am the first of the Muslims among this nation. He was the first Muslim among this nation, alayhi salatu wassalam. Allah mentioned prayer, nusuk, life and death all in one context. And He declared all of them to be in His ownership. Hence, just as Allah is the creator of the involuntary deeds such as life and death, likewise, He is the creator of the voluntary deeds such as prayer and nusuk, the acts of al-Hajj. And from this it would be known that even more so, Allah is the creator of the involuntary actions. What is distinct about the voluntary deeds, i.e. the voluntary deeds with regards to which we have an inclination, is that they are the deeds which we acquire by our intentions. Hence, they are what the slave is held to account for. And for us, the involuntary deeds, then they are not things that we acquire with our intention. The acquisition, al-kasb, which is in reference to the deed of the slave, for which he is either rewarded or punished in the hereafter. And it refers to the slave directing his intention and his will towards a matter, while doing this matter, i.e. to exert his power, his strength in doing that deed. And then Allah would create it for him at that instant, if Allah willed. If Allah willed. Like I might direct my intention towards standing up right now, but it doesn't mean that Allah will create it. I might want to stand up and I can't. My legs give in, and or my back starts to hurt, so I can't get up. This means that that deed was not meant for me. That acquisition was not meant for me. And it shows that I am not the creator. I can direct my intention towards something and it might be created. The norm that Allah created the world upon, some of the laws, if you will, of cause and effect, we see them every single day. We see cause and effect every day. And usually, if the cause is there, the effect is there. But sometimes it might be the case that the cause is there, but the effect is not there. Like I stand up every single day. I sit and I stand, sit and stand. One day, I might want to stand up. I direct my intention towards the deed, but Allah did not eternally will for it to occur, so it won't occur. So it will not occur. Hence, the slave is an acquirer of his deed. And Allah Ta'ala is the creator of the deed of this slave, which is his acquisition, the slaves. And this topic is amongst the most obscure matters in this field of knowledge. It's one of the matters where you have to submit the most, in one sense. Or there is a lot of submitting to be done, that you just leave the matter. It doesn't go against the mind, of course not. But you don't ask for more and more and more and more. You don't try to get the answers to try to let it rest. No, we just submit to the will of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and know that He is the creator. Allah Ta'ala revealed in ayah 286 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah 2, Laha ma kasabat. Every nafs, every self will have what it acquired of good. Laha meaning that it will be rewarded. Laha ma kasabat. Every nafs, your soul even, it will have what it acquired of good. It will be rewarded. Wa alayha maktasabat. Laha ma kasabat wa alayha maktasabat. And then also, whatever a person acquires of bad things, this person will be compensated for that with punishment and so on. So whatever good he does, then that is for him. He will see it. Whatever bad he does, then that will be upon him. Therefore, the human being is not compelled, because compulsion negates accountability. This is the true way, and it is different from the way of those that believe in compulsion and of those who deny al-qadr. Those who believe in compulsion say we are like a feather in the wind, moving left and right and left and right and left. So they say we are not accountable. And that is kufr. How would one claim that they are a Muslim and then say we're not accountable? What's the Day of Judgment about then? So that's kufr. That's belying the religious texts. And also there's the other side, which is the Mu'tazila, al-Qadariyah. Those who say that we create our own deeds. The first school is known as the school of Al-Jabriyah. Al-Jabriyah are the people who are of the opinion that we are like a feather in the wind and hence we are not accountable. That is their kufr. These are Al-Jabriyah, and then there are Al-Qadariyah. Those who say that even humans create. Wal-'iyadhu billah. Whoever says that the slave creates his own deeds, like was said by the Mu'tazila, commits kufr. This is just as Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma said, Kalamul Qadariyati kufrun. The words of the Qadariyah, they are kufr. And the Qadariyah are the Mu'tazila. Abu Yusuf al-Qadi said, Al-Mu'tazila zanadiqa. Meaning, the Mu'tazila are like atheists. And Abu Mansur al-Tamimi in Al-Farq Bayn al-Firaq described them as mushriks, worshipping other than Allah. Abu Mansur is the one that Ibn Hajar al-Haytami said about the great Imam, the Imam of our companions, Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi. So he has a status among the scholars also. He's not just someone here and there. And he was among those from whom al-Bayhaqi copied hadith, meaning he wrote hadith from him. He sat in his sessions. Do not be deceived by some of the later scholars, neglecting to declare the Mu'tazila as kafirs. Al-Ustadh Abu Mansur al-Tamimi al-Baghdadi conveyed the declaration of the Imams, conveyed the declarations of the Imams of the kufr against the Mu'tazila in his books. He explained that, like Usuluddin and Tafsir al-Asma' wal-Sifat, both books of Abu Mansur al-Tamimi al-Baghdadi, Usuluddin and Tafsir al-Asma' wal-Sifat, where he explained the meanings of the names of Allah and the attributes of Allah. He said in this book, our companions have a consensus about the charging the Mu'tazila with kufr. He said this with reference to those who say the slave creates his voluntary deeds, and likewise with reference to those who say that it is obligatory on Allah to do what is most beneficial for the slave. Some of the Mu'tazila say that. And by Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi saying, our companions, they agreed on the kufr of the Mu'tazila. By our companions, he means the Ash'ari scholars and the Shafi'i scholars. That's because he himself was an Ash'ari and a Shafi'i. In fact, he was one of the heads of the Shafi'i school, as was said by Ibn Hajar al-Haytami. There are many Ibn Hajars, Ibn Hajar al-Haytami, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Ibn Hajar al-Haythami also. So then the Shaykh said, and he is considered as one of the leading early Imams in transmission of previous matters. He is known for this among the scholars of fiqh and the scholars of creed, and the historians who have authored works about the factions. Also, he was famous in this. So whoever wants more certainty, let him read the books, let him read this scholar's books. Moreover, his transmission is not discredited by talk of al-Bajuri and his likes, who came before or after al-Bajuri. Al-Bajuri was a scholar who, he was a scholar, and he was very intelligent and knowledgeable about the matters of fiqh. Him and some others, they knew a lot about the prayer. They authored about the prayer, fasting, marriage, divorce, jihad, inheritance, volumes and volumes and volumes. They were actually, him and others, people who mastered their fields. Then some of them decided to author in creed. Shaykh Abdullah rahimahullah said, بَعْضُ هَؤُلَاء كَأَطْفَالٍ فِي الْعَقِيدَةِ. Some of these people who were giants in religious law, they were like children when it came to creed. That this is not something that they mastered. They should have stuck to speaking about what they know about and not delve into matters of the creed. Some of them ended up saying things like, the one who says that Allah is a body, there are two sayings in this, when we know it's kufr outright. And things like in some of the books of some, statements like the Mu'tazila who say Allah, or the Mu'tazila who say that the human creates his own deeds, these people are not kuffar, and so on. So there were people who came like this among the scholars, whose books you find these mistakes in. If they actually made those mistakes, then they committed kufr. But this did not happen to the scholars who had a very high rank. But these people were also scholars. They memorized, and they were very, very aware of the religious knowledge and the different cases in the different branches of religious law. But when they came to Aqidah, this was not their field. As for the talk of some of the earlier scholars in reference to desisting, charging the Mu'tazila with kufr, this is interpreted to mean that these scholars did this in reference to the likes of Bishr al-Marisi and al-Ma'mun al-Abbasi. Because Bishr agreed with the Mu'tazila in saying the Quran is created in reference to the revealed text, without referring to the attribute of Allah. And Bishr charged a group of the Mu'tazila with kufr for saying that the slave creates his own deeds. So some scholars, they saw certain people, like some of the Khalifas, who actually helped the Mu'tazila. Some of the Khalifas too helped the Mu'tazila in what they were doing and lend them an ear. Not only that, they made the Mu'tazila their right-hand men. But even then, some of the scholars, they refrained. Like Sheikh Abdullah didn't call these Khalifas, these caliphs, kuffar, because he made an excuse for them. He said that they didn't really know what they were saying. When they were saying that the Quran is created, they were referring to the religious book. They were referring to the revealed text, the letters and so on. So they didn't really understand what the Mu'tazila was saying. So many scholars made excuses for some of these people. That doesn't mean now that just because they were in and around the Mu'tazila that we are saying that the Mu'tazila are not kuffar. No, they were kuffar. Hence, know that not everyone who is ascribed to the school of the Mu'tazila is judged with the same judgment. No. But every single individual among them is judged as being misguided. Any one of the Mu'tazila who believed that evil does not occur by the will of Allah, or that the human being creates the deeds, then he is judged as a kafir. However, if he said things like, people will not see Allah in the hereafter, then they are considered a deviant innovator who is an enormous sinner. But the saying that has more weight with regards to them is that they are not judged as kuffar. So there are a group of people, they are known as the Mu'tazila. They had many different beliefs, and they amongst themselves differed also. Those of them who said that Allah is obligated to do things for the slave, they are kuffar. Those who said that the slave creates his own deeds, these people are kuffar. However, those people who said amongst the Mu'tazila, they only said, they didn't say the previous things, they only said, well, Allah cannot be seen in the hereafter. This is a matter that they made a mistake in. This is a matter that they made a mistake in. They built it upon a premise, that the judgment that they gave, that Allah will supposedly not be seen. They built it upon a premise that the premise we agree with. What is the premise? Allah exists without a place. We agree with that. Okay. So they took this and then they didn't channel their energy properly. They took this that was correct and said, well, okay, if Allah exists without a place, to say that he will be seen must necessitate that he's in a place. That means Allah will not be seen. So most scholars said, well, okay, that's not correct, but we're not going to call them kuffar. This is simplifying it a lot. They said, we're not going to call them kuffar. Like Sheikh Abdullah said that these people who just say that, they only carry this belief of the Mu'tazila, we don't call them kuffar. Some scholars did call them non-Muslims though, like Al-Imam Malik. Just for this, Al-Imam Malik said, if somebody says that Allah will not be seen in the hereafter, this person is a kafir. But Shaykh Abdullah did not agree. He said this person is a major sinner. So the Mu'tazila, there are different groups among them that carry different beliefs. Al-Hafiz An-Nawawi, for example, said that it's valid, that the prayer behind a Mu'tazili is valid. So, what this must mean, because we think well of Al-Hafiz An-Nawawi, what this must mean is that a Mu'tazili who attributes himself to the Mu'tazila but doesn't have any kufr beliefs, he has beliefs that he goes against, with these beliefs he goes against Ahl Sunnah, but none of them are the ones that are kufr. Then he's a Muslim and he's a major sinner. So you can pray behind a major sinner. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام صلوا خلف كل بر وفاجر وصلوا على كل بر وفاجر. Pray behind every pious person and every majorly sinful person. And pray upon, the janazah prayer, pray upon every pious person and every majorly sinful person. So this was the meaning of this saying of An-Nawawi. And the scholars, many of them mentioned that An-Nawawi should have specified. Because yes, in his mind, he knows what he's saying. But many people might not. The intellectual evidence for the invalidity of the saying of the Mu'tazila that the slave creates his deeds. The people of truth said that it is not possible for the slave to create his deeds because of the absolute inclusivity of all things being under the power, will, and knowledge of Allah. So they said it's impossible that a human would create. Why? Because all things come under the power, will, and knowledge of Allah. The clarification of the evidence in this regard is that the power of Allah is all-inclusive. His knowledge is all-inclusive. And His will is all-inclusive. He has power over absolutely everything. He knows absolutely everything, and whatever He wills, it comes into existence. So everything that He wills comes into existence. So the attribute of power, knowledge, and will of Allah are considered in reference to all the mentally possible matters in one way. In other words, the power of Allah in reference to our bodies and the power of Allah in reference to our deeds is considered in one regard. Thus, it would be said to the Mu'tazila, on what basis did you deem the power of Allah only applying specifically to the bodies and not to the deeds? Because the Mu'tazila, they say, Allah created our bodies, but the deeds we create. So how did they make this exception? When we know Allah created our bodies and our deeds and everything. Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah has power over everything, which includes our bodies and our deeds. Then why did the Mu'tazila exclude the deeds? Where's the proof for that? That Allah didn't create the deeds and hence the people create their deeds. There is no proof for that. So we say to them, thus it would be said to them, on what basis did you deem the power of Allah, did you deem that the power of Allah only applies specifically to the bodies and not to our deeds? Hence the existence of the mentally possible is in need of a powerful one in reference to its possibility and its occurrence. I.e., the mentally possible requires another to bring it into existence after non-existence. And thus the mentally possible is in need. Hence, all mentally possible matters, which include the deeds that we do, require a creator to bring them into existence. And that creator is Allah. Moreover, if these attributes of Allah were specific to only some of the mentally possible matters, then this would dictate that Allah is attributed with the opposite of these attributes, such as being attributed with ignorance about some things, because if he doesn't have knowledge about everything, it means he would be ignorant about some things. Or he would be attributed with inability. If he doesn't have power over everything, he must be weak in one regard. And this is imperfection. And imperfection in reference to Allah is impossible. I mean, you can't say Allah created the bodies of people alone and then say, well, as for the deeds, he didn't create. Because that's attributing Allah with power and weakness. And this is impossible. In other words, it's clear, it's okay. Furthermore, the specification of those attributes would have dictated a specifier. Meaning, if someone says Allah only has power over creating the bodies of people and not their deeds, but that's now specificity. This, if you want, specificness, if you will, where does it come from? It requires someone to have specified it. It's as though they are saying Allah has power over some things and is weak over other things. So this would mean that Allah is in need. Who specified him with that? How is it that he has power over some things and not other things? It would mean that he is in need and that someone else specified him. Furthermore, the specification of those attributes to apply to only some of the mentally possible, like to say has power over some and not over others, this would dictate a specifier. And this in turn would mean that the specification applies to Allah, i.e. the one whose existence is absolutely necessary, and that it would apply to his attributes also. And this is impossible, because the one who is specified with some things instead of other things is himself created. Therefore, the absolute inclusivity of his attributes, that everything comes under his power, everything comes under his knowledge, everything comes under his will, this is confirmed. You can't go half-half. Moreover, if Allah the Exalted willed for the creation of an occurrence, and the slave willed for what is different to that. And if the will of the slave took place instead of the will of Allah, that would validate the impossible claim of two gods, and also for there to be numerous gods. For God to be more than one, this is impossible. And it's known, the impossibility of that is known through intellectual and textual evidences. And whatever leads to an impossibility is itself impossible. So it's impossible that a human, a jinn, or an angel would create their own deeds. It is Allah that creates the deeds, and it is Allah that grants us these deeds, the good deeds, by His mercy. And it is Allah that will admit us into paradise, inshaAllah, by His mercy. And He will admit those who enter hell by His justice, tabaraka wa ta'ala. This now brings us to the end of speaking about Al-Qadr. And before we go on to speak about prophethood, there is the matter of, let's bring it up here, confirmation that normal reasons themselves do not in reality create anything. Rather, the only one that creates in reality is Allah. So we're going to talk about causes and effects. To summarize or to finish off holistically this chapter of Al-Qadr, even though we're not going to speak about Al-Qadr anymore. But it's important when we speak about cause and effect. It's important when we're alone, and for us to think about these things, cause and effect, and how it works. And each time you drink, for example, water because you're parched, and each time you drink it and you become quenched, then that's a creation of Allah that did not by necessity have to exist. Just because you put water, just because you drank water, it doesn't mean you had to become quenched. A person sees that and says, even in his heart, he thinks, Subhanallah. This increases our reliance on Allah. To know that I might drink five glasses of this water and I wouldn't be quenched unless Allah willed. And another person might drink a drop and he would be quenched. Like Allah Ta'ala has made for those who drink from the basin of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. They won't drink much, but then after that they will never be thirsty again. Allah is the one that creates in whatever He wills, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So we'll stop here for today, inshallah, and continue, as I said, next time with the story of Rahmatu bintu Ibrahim, inshallah. Okay, let's say La ilaha illallah and as-salah ala nabi. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim.